GPRTU there on an issue that has come up very strongly in the last few days concerning increase in the transport fares across certain parts of the city and beyond. I find this conversation very interesting for one reason. How it has only gotten to the attention of the authorities in the last few days. Because this thing has been happening for months, if not years. Was it on Monday or so? I got messages from about 3 or 4 people who said in the areas in which they live. And I remember one sent a message about, I think, a shaman to one of those communities down the road. And I think another one I got from a shaman to Tema or something like that, where the drivers had increased their rates. And then I think somewhere from Spintex to the Accra Mall area or so, the drivers on that street had increased their rates. And I was asking myself whether we have people who manage these spaces in the country. Because here in Accra, unless you don't board a Trotsky, or unless you've never boarded a Trotsky in Accra before, when it is rush hour especially, so let's say early morning when a lot of people are looking for a car to get to work, or late in the evening when so many people have closed from work and want to get a car home, all of a sudden the fares escalates. So for example, if you are supposed to pay, let's say 10 cedis from Kanishi to Kaswa, the car comes to park somewhere around the Kanishi area, and you would hear the mate saying, let's say Kaswa, 20 cedis straight. And you see people like literally jumping, flying, I mean anything to get into the car. Meanwhile, the actual fare on that particular route may be, let's say, 10 cedis or 12 cedis. And then you ask the mates or you ask the people involved why they are charging their own fares, and they give you some ridiculous reasons why they are increasing those fares at that particular time. And you see, at that time you are so tired, you've had a long day at the office, you want to get home early so that you can leave home early the next day and make it to work again. So whether you are being asked to pay a little more or not, you are forced to pay. The worst part is when the cars come to park, and let's say the mates would shout and say, oh, maybe he's going to be charging this much or that much, and people are standing there and they don't want to board. Okay, then they also find a very clever way of upping the fare. So what do? Now, let's say if you bought a car from Kanishi to Malam Junction and it is, let's say, 10 cedis, or Kanishi to Kaswa and it's, let's say, 12 cedis. Instead of loading Kaswa streets, that car will probably start loading Odoko. When you get to that Odoko, that same driver will start loading Malam Junction. When you get to Malam Junction, then that same driver will start loading Kaswa. So if you don't want to pay that 20 Ghana cedi or 18 Ghana cedi or 25 Ghana cedi, you would actually end up paying that amount of money. That is what happens. You would actually end up paying that amount of money, because if you had boarded and paid for a straight fare from Kanishi to Kaswa for X amount of money, now that he's loading Odoko first, you are going to end up paying some amount of money. Malam Junction second, you're going to end up paying some amount of money, and then finally Kaswa, you're going to end up paying some kind of money. And even if you are going beyond Kaswa, let's say Budumbram or Pekuma and all of those communities, you get to Kaswa and he's loading again. These are things that happen on our stretch every single day, unless the authorities want to say that they are not aware of these developments. So as for the increase there, they have been increasing it since. For people on my stretch, they encounter that every day. I've been experiencing it for years, because every now and then you may have a challenge or two with your car every now and then, and you might decide to go by that route if you probably cannot get an Uber, or you think that the rates are ridiculous. You are at Accra Central, the drivers will come and they are loading circle. You get to circle, they are loading Achimota. You get to Achimota, they are either loading Domi, or they are loading Taifa, or they are loading Ofanko. You get to Ofanko, he's loading Pukwasi Amasamai. When you get to Pukwasi Amasamai, he's loading Dubru or Sapemai. And then when you get to Dubru, he's now loading in Sawam. So on that same stretch, if you want to go to Nsawam, you can pay about 5 different fares just to get to Nsawam. Meanwhile, the car could have just loaded Accra to Nsawam. And